Welcome to Men Let Me Reason, the podcast, a space dedicated to fostering open and honest conversations about the complex realities of fatherhood and ultimately manhood in today's world. We will be exploring the unspoken issues that we men face, shedding light on what society expects of us, our emotions, and our social interactions at all levels, especially within the family. This podcast isn't just about acknowledging issues, it's about us men being accountable, transparent, and finding solutions while building strong support systems. So, men, let me reason. Welcome to Men Let Me Reason. This is the space where we men discuss the unspoken realities of manhood. Today, we will focus on a very important topic, one that is extremely close to my heart: legacies. Leaving legacies and building a foundation for our children. I am Fabian Sargent. I am your host, and with me to discuss this topic this evening is we have Ryan Hunte and Ryan Gittens. We got the Ryans. Yeah. And as I said, this is a topic that is very, very close to my heart, because I think that we as black men, as black people, and again, bring it down to race, I don't think that we focus enough on building legacies for our families and our children. I think that we just live. I think we live day by day, and we sit down and I see other legacies, other races, and other people leaving the businesses and doing things with their children in mind and family in mind, and I really would like us to really, really look at it from a perspective, a black man, a major perspective. What's the issues? What do you think? Let me start there, with the why. Why don't fathers, or why don't we as a people focus on legacies, in your opinion? Anybody? Ryan, you can go.
Well, I think, first of all, it's probably a generational thing. It is a race thing, because several times we have come along and we've seen our forefathers enjoying life. I remember seeing this clip where there was, it was funny, where somebody had a image of a father partying and said in the 1960s, while everybody else was buying land, this was my father. And I thought it was funny, but at the same time, it struck me that at the end of the day, we have to ensure that we create, this buzzword you hear all the time, generational wealth. We have to create generational wealth, because at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we give our children a good start, because with a good start, you can do so much more.
Yeah.
Right?
But I know we look at the generational wealth, we look at money, which is critical, but there are other things to go with that. Legacies, we look at practices and behaviors. Money is critical, but I feel as if sometimes we're missing so much different parts. Ryan, what do you think?
Well, I think to address your first question, Mr. Hunt is correct. He's talking from a past time.
Why am I?
Right. But I don't want to call you Hunt. It's called you Hunt. So he's correct. However, I think it goes way back, and I don't want to dwell too much on the origins per se, because history, a dark thing. But let's address it. Let's look at other races. The first, what we would call Indians, came here in 1905 or 1906.
We go all about, but
no, but it's important. But it didn't come from an environment of a plantocracy type environment. They were already entrepreneurs and a working class in India, versus our people who would have came off the plantations. And we know our history. I would like to believe that we know our history, and not having the rooted foundation of independence, or better yet, a better use of the word interdependence. Myself having a skill set, Ryan having a skill set, you having a skill set, and pairing it together then to create momentum in the society, which automatically then creates legacy. because it creates pastime, it creates confidence, it creates a cultural growth. We never knew that. We came from an area where, and you can go as far back. Our foreparents came from different origins within one continent. So they're already divided for whatever reason, different languages, whatever reason, different cultures, whatever the case may be. They're moving forward then, and in a plantocracy era, in the.
And why you going real far back?
We going back so far. So we look at the sugar factory, the sugar cane era, and that kind of stuff. That it was always divided. It was never a situation where. So who are Batley plantation? Who are Hansel plantation? Really interacting about up there, you know. Right. So I ain't learning from you, you're learning from me.
Right.
So how could we create growth? Right. If we're evolving as a unit, and that's the problem. And then obviously now we in this generation now with more knowledge, with a more globalized world, and we still at square one in my opinion, where we're not passing on information. You mentioned money. But I think it is misunderstood. When people speak of generational, we have to look at money, but it's really the passing of knowledge. Money is very relative.
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
And you only live this.
Yeah, for sure.
We live it.
Yeah,
You know, if
for
I'm
sure,
very young,
for sure,
money
for
is very, very relative. Right? But knowledge is forever.
But we as we even delve a bit more, like we don't understand money. I think as a people generally, we don't understand money. And I think like for men, like fatherhood is so critical that it allows us to create generations. Because that's what it is, I think that every single man is a generation. You have your two sons, and your two sons more or less can go and get children. They can start to create, and at least they will be creating generations. You got your sons, and and we create generations.
Right.
How do we really pour into our children that allows them to consider planning for the future? You understand what I mean? Like I sit down and let me even use myself as the example. Like I see my father as a young man who from Guyana. And when I really sit down and study even the cultural context, so a lot of these Guyanese men, there's really a lot of them got a little bit of thing, but they always talk about the wifey and the working and the belief in family for the most part. And I saw my father live that. And for me, it's something that I had to carry on. That when my sons come, I say, look, my children are born at home, I got to find a place. And when my first son came, me and my wife, we were living under our own roof. It was a struggle, but that's something I would like to see my children carry on. And we even talking money then. We are just talking about a practice of family, of keeping family together. Yes, money plays a big role in it, but how do we really, that mindset, like, how do we get men on really planning for we just plan for businesses. You're a businessman.
Correct.
We just plan for everything else in our lives, but we don't plan for your families.
Well, I think, to be honest, a lot of men these days are not just looking at things that happened in the past and using that to really guide them. Like, I'm one of these parents who read a lot. I study a lot in terms of studying parenting. So therefore, I look at things that are important to the molding. And as you said, I have two sons, and I look at molding men and not just, and that helps create that same generational wealth you spoke about. So even helping them to get in touch with their emotional side. So like one of the things I remember, one day one of my sons came to me and he was having a conversation about his mom, and he thought she was a little bit hard on something he did. I said, listen to me, let me have a conversation. I said, look, at the end of the day, while you may think that your mom was being hard, I don't want you to take it and hold any remorse or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, you have to realize, for women, sometimes they are emotional beings. Sometimes things take over their bodies that they can't even control, because that's the natural cycle of life. She may say something to you, but she doesn't necessarily mean it in a bad way. It might just be something she can't control at the point in time, but it doesn't mean that she loves you any less. Do not hold any remorse towards her Don't hold any remorse as your grandmother because she may tell you something, because at the end of the day, you need to learn how to deal with these things, because you will want to have your own relationships, and these are things that will help. So even things like teaching men how to deal with their own emotional feelings, and how to deal with their partner's feelings and so on, those are things that we need to teach. Right? So going back to what you were saying, it doesn't necessarily always have to be about money. Right? You teach them how to treat others nicely. Like one of the things they do, I've brought them along, and every single Christmas or whatever, I make sure that they make some kind of donation to some charitable event. You have to teach them to love other people. You have to teach them to be good citizens, and I usually tell them that you don't have to pay me anything when I get old. You don't even need to take care of me. All I want you to do is be a good citizen and take care of the other people around you. And I think that that can go a long way to building the same generational wealth that we talk about all the time.
Yeah, man. Values. You want to say something else now?
For the most part, I think Ryan is correct. The other thing is that we need to first bridge generation gaps, which is very important. You know what I mean? In a more practical sense, where what you find is that in our communities, that there's a lot of rifts, which we would have experienced with our parents, and versus no, we are much younger parents. I don't think that we're much younger parents. I just think that I don't know what it is, but we're more in tune with our children, and it's not like a cookie cutter kind of model, like more tailored to tailor fit their needs.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we need to first understand where the gaps are. Right. What causing the rifts, especially with young men. You know, the boy becoming a teenager. He and testosterone up in the air. So the whole best to work around these things and try to pull them along as best as we could. And that is critical. So then what happens is, once again, then you build a momentum, you create a pastor, and you create a culture. And then the culture is passed on, and that is really what generational wealth is. It's really the passing of a culture.
Yeah.
Whether we discussing finance or behavioral traits, or whatever the case may be. It's the passing of torch, building the right culture in the community, and they're going to start with the families and the households. Right?
But I think I really agree with you, and I think that we're seeing a shift in the culture.
I agree.
That's the truth. I would like to see a lot more men paying attention to the children and paying attention to family, but that got a lot to do with how we see ourselves as individuals. A lot of men don't really value themselves.
Sure.
And if you, I guess that's where to start, because what you are looking for, that foundation that you are looking for to build a future generation, you gotta start with self. Where do we as men pull from that? Because we come from some real toxic environments. I mean, a lot of childhood traumas. I mean, we went through the hard pipe, and where I can tell you, become here, right? We went through a lot. We went through a lot of wars together, literally financial and otherwise. But we come out at the end successful. We come out at another end saying, well, look, you know, we gotta learn from these mistakes and build for our children. And I think that I guess a lot of these failures that we had as men, we were able now to look at and say, well, look, yeah, we want to do better. And the same men doing much better. But we still got a long way to go.
That's true.
A long way to go.
And I think, honestly, it's a societal thing.
Sure.
But to agree with you, I think that we have to do a lot more as men. And to be honest, I think we started on the right path, and you got to build on things like this, programs like this, where you help men to understand, like you said, that there are safe spaces. You know, there's always a lot of conversation bashing men, but there's not enough showing good examples of men and what they do and so on. And it is really funny, because sometimes even doing good stuff and being a good father and a good man, sometimes people even think that you're flaunting it, you're showing off or whatever. But at the end of the day, I always say it impacts the children. I tell people all the time, you have to make sure that you work on all aspects of your children. So my sons are 16 and 14. My oldest son will still come and have a conversation with me, show me a conversation between him and the girl and stuff, because you've built that trust and so on. And I think that if we continue as men to do that and help our sons, then it will spread, and the generation coming up will be a lot better. And in a few years, hopefully, they'll say a lot better things about men.
It's a positive spiral. It's a spiral effect. You know, I mean, look. The reality of the matter is, there are deficiencies in society amongst the youth. Where you come from, where I come from, which is serious areas, and we see a lot of it. We try to save a few. I may have a deaf salad.
Yeah.
You know, I had a deaf salad.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it impactful because these is kids that you see coming up, and in no time to that age. But then the other questions will be asked: where are the community groups that were there before? Where's the 4-H? Where's the sports clubs? All of these things depleted. So as a collective and from a social construct, from that perspective, I think we need to get a lot more of these things happening, a lot more safe spaces for the youth. Because it's hard to say, well, in our households is more concentrated effort. But the reality is, though, that our children, and my son older than you guys' son, you know, my oldest son, in reality is that our children still have to go into those spaces with these same children.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And none of you here from the Fort George Heights. Correct.
No.
Far
not. Yeah.
I'm not here right now. None of you here can't want to go spoon.
Correct.
See? So we are products of our environment, that, but we use the negatives. I don't want to say negatives per se. We use the challenges.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we get these youth then to understand? How do my son? How does my son impact that youngster that doesn't have the same examples?
Yeah.
Right? And how do we create better spaces? And I just want to applaud you for the programs that you're putting in place with the youth and stuff. I did some mentorship with a few of the guys. So I can't remember the names. Names a little tongue twisted. Renako and Takiri. I don't want to forget nobody.
You meet to Jerry.
You see what that?
Yeah.
These names. Anyhow, long story short, and these boys are intelligent boys, you know.
Yes, they are.
These boys are and on the flip, the witty here. Mommy can ask, what he did?
Yeah.
I can't see it.
Yeah.
Right? I tell them my home environment. And the boys intelligent boys, these boys got a lot of potential. I see it in the communities a lot, but for some reason, we're losing each other between the age of 14, 18, 19. Something grabbing them out there. Right?
I think that we do have some real serious social issues, and technology has played a big part.
Of course.
But I still think that you talk about space just now, right? I think that we as men, as fathers, or even as role models or information men within our communities, need to create that space for the boys in our space. Because the reality is that there's a great degree of fatherlessness within our society. We have a lot of boys out there who don't have positive men who can guide them, who can lead them, or who can give them that sense of direction. And that is what can help build the legacies for tomorrow. So these boys that don't have fathers look to men like us for that mentorship, for that guidance. So it is imperative that a lot more men stand up on their own 2 feet and hold some responsibility.
But how could we get how the challenge is how could we take it from a micro to macro level where we have more impact? When I was growing up, there was football clubs, youth clubs. We both went through those systems. Right? It was cricket, it was community groups. Right? I mean, I just didn't know my neighborhood where I grew up. No, there's nothing.
But let me look at education. What's going on in the system? What's going on with boys? What's going on in terms of when we talking about legacy and even educating our children? Who educating our children, you know?
Well, you see, the thing is, I have my own concerns with sometimes the way persons are educated, because you think about it, you have persons who, everybody's not going to be on the same level. And I often say this to people peak at different ages. There are some people going to peak at the common entrance. They go to one of what people call the big 6, or whatever, but when they get there, they've exhausted all that they want to do and their focus is elsewhere. And therefore, they may not be your traditional person that came through that school. There's some people who go to one of these schools that people consider to be the lower secondary schools, and therefore their expectation is set, the bar is set low, but some of those people excel because they peak at a different age. Some people don't have access to quality education when they're coming up, and therefore they might not be the same as somebody who had the opportunity to do it, but then they may have a skill, and that skill could take them far further, and we know how it goes.
Yeah.
There are persons who I tell people, it kind of is, you're seeing it over and over again. People go to university, they come out and do well because that's what we teach our children. Go to school, get a good job, learn well and get a good job.
That's it.
But nobody is pushing the ones who have a skill and so on. And then we recognize that the world is now going towards the persons who have the skills and so on. And therefore, as I say, I think it has to start from even the way we approach education. People tend to look at the children who are the so-called bright sparks. Mommy and daddy may be able to, afford certain things and they get special treatment. While somebody who you may recognize as a diamond in the rough, they may not pay attention to that person. People talk down to those kind of children, you're never going to be any good, that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, yes, I think we need to change the mindset and have a more open mindset, because that is going to change. Because most of the time, most of our teachers are teaching children to pass exams.
Yeah.
And you can't really operate like that. You can't be teaching to pass exams. Exactly.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
You ain't teaching our critical thinking.
Correct.
But I'll tell you this, right? We're talking about the formal education system, but then there's that informal type of education. Like everything that I do, I include my son.
Yep.
I include him. He has to be given that information.
Yep.
He has to see his father in action, in something, in anything. And the more experiences our children get, the more we open up that scope. And not only that, they feed on us and what we do.
Yeah.
So like, that's where the legacy is too, because it's in behaviors, it's in practices. You're developing a culture, we providing our safe space. And that is what you do. Then I just do that. I don't include my child. At least the older one, the 7-year-old, he can't go everywhere. But my oldest son, I try to get him involved. And I'll tell you this. I remember me and my son had a conversation once. And I'll share this because I think it's important. And I asked him, what do you think of me as a parent? And he asked me, what do you mean? I said, what do you mean? What do you think of me? Like, tell me, how do you see me as your father? And his first response shocked me. He said, I love the fact that you are there.
Yeah.
And blow me out the water. I mean, like he be watching this here now, and like tears stand up in my eye. Like, I could not believe that came out of his mouth. So sometimes we underestimate the power of creating space.
Yeah, our behaviors and stuff. And children watch everything.
I always say, growing up, my son growing up, it's not quantity time, it's quality time. Different environments where we're not, there's more at a younger age, but when I'm there, it gotta be impactful time. He go see the value.
Yeah.
He go see the value of the time that we spend together, whatever it may be, right? And theory is no. Yeah. So
he's a big man.
Big man now. We interest vast different. He in this politics thing and down my space.
Good young man.
However, he ain't get there overnight.
Yeah.
Right? It had to start with a foundation. Had to start with diligence. What we doing? When we doing this, we do it to a certain standard. At all times. It start with not quitting.
Yeah. Sister, there that sparks in my head and that way laugh, right? Because we always relegate fatherhood to providing financial support.
Yeah.
A lot of families, a lot of mothers particularly don't study that whole concept of quality time.
Quality,
and the impact. And
that legacy. Fathers got to realize that or every situation is different, right? You really make it a day. And it's a situation where you got the child on the weekend, might be whatever the situation is, but when it is that, it must be impactful. What is this child interested in? What direction this child going in? What he triggers? How he thinking? You know, like you said, you do a lot of reading and stuff. You got to be studious with your child. Yeah. You got to study your child behaviors. You got to study the things that impacting your child in a major way, right? And then when it helps you to understand tools, you start to say, "Oh, that's me." That's me.
Sometimes I look at my son.
Yeah, well, you know,
my son is on steroids.
You got
exactly correct.
You know, that's me. You got peg back there.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, it's very true.
I got peg back there. You know, when you see that's part of who I am, and it's not always good. Yeah. But then you also see other sides. You trying to say that's when you, because your child is lead you know that's where that's what I need to be. I need to be better in those areas. Because look at where this child is going. Right. It has to motivate, inspire, also opens a scope of how you perceive things. But and there's a message to fathers for sure. Right. And men, because everybody can cross that bridge at some point in time. Every situation is not going to be perfect. For whatever reason, right? I'm not the judge or whatever the case would be, but your role is impact. Your role is impact. You gotta be impactful, whatever that may be. So if you got half hour, that must be the most impactful half hour in our child life for the week. However you get that work out, because every child different, every child interest different. Right, and then as fathers too, you need to be on top of your game because you realize children' interests change according to the age and fast. Then we find ourselves caught up in a comfort zone. They try to spiral past us, right? So you got to stay on top of your game. Read whatever it takes, but be impactful.
Yeah, but again, shift gears here because our discussion has been predominantly about positive legacies, building strong men and strong individuals, right? But there's a force in society where there's a lot of negative type of legacies that fathers out there building.
For sure.
You understand? A lot of men out there smoking drugs and dealing guns. A lot of men out there doing things, they're being promiscuous, got enough women, you know, they're out there committing crimes. We got a lot of criminals out there that got children, and they want the children to do that. They want the children to get to the best school. They want the children to turn out to be lawyers and doctors and everybody else. I don't think that what the example that they're setting, creating legacies, and I want them men that watching this podcast to understand that all of these negative behaviors, you know, you can't be a drug dealer, expose your children to see you point the 5 bag and the coke and thing under the garbage can, and you stashing the gun, and you feel as if man he or she can understand my life and your life and you become their life. And then when the child goes to school now and the child selling drugs at school and the principal call you or the police call you, you want to go down and kill the child. Where you are creating that legacy, you are creating those generational issues for children. So it is incumbent on us fathers to pay attention to our own behaviors. Our own behaviors.
I mean, generally, children learn by example. So, as he said earlier, sometimes you may see your child doing something and say, but that's me. So that's the way we have to look at it. We set an example. We're not perfect. But at the end of it all, I think it is for us to make sure that we, as people say, create the change we want to see. So if we know that we have been doing something for years, it is a problem for us. Sometimes we got to work on it. I think I always tell people it starts with honesty, being honest with yourself, and wanting to be better and do better and make sure your children better. Yeah. I always talk about this thing about creating a good citizen. And that's how I feel my responsibility is, make sure I raise somebody who I'm responsible for, to put them out in society that will be, you know, a gentleman, they'll be respectful and those kind of things. And that's all I ask for. Yeah. As I keep saying all the time, you can't, as you said, expect to do all of these wrong things and don't think the child will see. And that the child get on thing. If you're a man accustomed, like you say, it might not even be the smoking or illegal activity, but it might be something simple as you bring in 3 and 4 and 5 different females in your son's space. Your son, you grew up thinking what is right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all of those things, as I said, come from us having to learn to set an example. If we don't set examples, the children, because children mimic what they see basically.
Correct. Yeah. And all of you just talked about is laying a foundation, laying that value system.
Yeah, correct.
And I feel like we start to move away from that, you know.
Right.
You see, when you set a strong foundation of values and principles and morals, don't care what fires then children go through, then boys go through.
Yeah. They will return there. They will return there.
The resilience can be so amazing.
So true. Very true.
And we got to be able to demonstrate that resilience.
So true.
We got to be able to be strong. And for me personally, I feel like that one of my strong points. You see, being resilient, being able to bounce back, right? You know your background. Being able to be kicked down on the ground and get back up and stare in the face and say, look, you want to beat me today. Life is coming at you.
That belief, that know-how.
Yeah, boss. And I think that as men, we got to demonstrate that level of strength for our boys, because the world ain't gonna be easy.
Yeah, correct.
I don't want to be easy for my sons, and the reason why is that when I go in the world,
it's not gonna be easy.
Nah, man. People can tell you the worst
The
things.
thing about it, right, is that crossing. But we in our time, we was competing with Barbados and the Caribbean at best.
Yeah.
These children coming out now in their times, they compete on a global platform.
Yeah.
It's a totally different space.
Yeah.
Right? It's a lot more challenging, it's a lot more demand. There's a lot more, you know, and it's a lot more required, a lot more resilience. Ironically, you mentioned that, right? Just bring things into context and putting a gear to it. Thierry's 21 years old now.
Right? Ready, boy?
Hold on. At 21, he can't even begin to imagine the amount of responsibility and business and stuff that we were doing at that age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But why?
Because he ain't really.
You know what happened?
He's a good kid, but he ain't raised with that.
Because you cushion him.
That's certain
I
extent.
think most of us,
But we can't
as
different
men do
environments.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't
Most of
different
us as men
environments.
do it.
He had a hard knocks environment that I would have had.
Yeah.
And I don't want my children to go experience that. Because that could go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's
That
true.
you could anywhere in the environment, but luckily you meet good people, you build good relationships, and you grow, right? But I just said I said to you that like although the challenge that the children are experiencing, our real experience, are vast different to what we experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right? And we gotta give them as much coping mechanisms as possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Agreed. But as we wind down now, what I mean, we talking to men. There's Men Every Reason podcast, and we talking directly to fathers. You know, give these men some closing comments. You know, to really encourage them to focus on building that legacy and looking down the road. I guess for the benefit of the children. Really, just some few closing words. Talk to the men out there.
Right. So for me, it would really be to set an example. Like I said, be the change that you want to see. So you have to take responsibility first and foremost. If you know that there's something that you yourself that you continue to do, let that be something that you work on. Let your children see the fact that you are working on things, that you are trying to improve yourself, you're trying to do things differently, and set the example for children. To me, that's the best way for men to do it. Set the example and be really, really, as Ryan said earlier, be there for the children, because if you're not there, you can't deal with the issues and so on.
From my point of view, I think I can narrow it down to a few things, and things that are practical in terms of our everyday lives. For one, this podcast, there gonna be guys out there that can say, well, we're in a better situation, and not knowing history.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? And not knowing the struggle and the pain and the disappointments and all the other things that you had to make through to get to this point. Right? And not to dwell on that stuff, but just trying to understand the key word is resilience. And when it comes to your children, is impact. And if you can have a conversation, which I think is a need to have a more direct conversation about finance and how we approach it at a later date. But if we can speak about finance and money and that kind of stuff, please note and be very clear that money and what you is not everybody just get money, is not what you have, it's what you do with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of understanding the need for growth. And the need to sacrifice when you have to then to position yourself for betterment. Right? And that impacts the direction that will affect your children and also help to motivate and inspire yourself.
For sure.
So that we just keep pushing on and keep believing that in a better tomorrow, put in the work.
Yeah.
That's
so Ryan, thank you, my brother. Thank you, Ryan G and Ryan H, you know. Thank you guys, for being so vulnerable, for sharing so honestly, because that's what we need. And thank you as well for tuning into this podcast, Main Levy Reason. Find us on all social media platforms. We go live, you can find us every Tuesday at 6 o'clock on YouTube, but we are shared across Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify. So, log in, share it with a friend, like, post your comments, and get engaged. Until next time, man, Levy Reason.